The champagne flute trembled in my hand, condensation slipping down the crystal like tears I refused to shed. Around me, the charity gala hummed with the sound of wealth, designer gowns whispering against marble floors, laughter that never quite reached anyone's eyes. I didn't belong here. Not anymore. 3 weeks ago, I would have been on Marcus's arm, playing the role of devoted girlfriend at events like this, smiling for cameras, making small talk with investors and their wives. 3 weeks ago, I still believed the man I loved was capable of loyalty. Tonight, I was here alone, courtesy of my best friend Sarah, who'd insisted I needed to get out, to show my face, to prove I wasn't destroyed by what Marcus had done. But standing in the corner of the Metropolitan Museum's Grand Hall, clutching my champagne like a lifeline, while trying to avoid eye contact with anyone who might recognize me from the society pages, I felt exactly as destroyed as I'd feared. The dress I wore was beautiful, a deep burgundy silk that Sarah had lent me, because all my formal wear had been purchased by Marcus, and I'd rather burn than wear anything he'd bought me. My hair was swept up in a style that took an hour to achieve, my makeup carefully applied to hide the shadows under my eyes from too many sleepless nights. I looked like I belonged among these people. I looked like I was fine. I was neither of those things. That's when I saw him. Marcus, walking through the crowd like he owned the place, which given his family's wealth, he practically did. And beside him, draped on his arm like an expensive accessory, was her, Vanessa. The colleague he swore was just a friend, the woman he'd insisted I was being paranoid about, the same woman I'd found him with in our bed 2 days before we were supposed to leave for what he'd called a romantic getaway to the Maldives. She wore white, which felt like a deliberate insult. White and innocent when she was neither. The dress probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, now that I'd moved into a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn that smelled perpetually of the Indian restaurant downstairs. Marcus's hand rested on her lower back, possessive, the same way it used to rest on mine. My stomach churned. I'd known there was a chance I'd see them here. Sarah had warned me. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it viscerally were entirely different things. The champagne glass shook harder. I set it down on a nearby table before I could drop it, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. I needed to leave. This was a mistake. I wasn't ready to see them together, to face the reality of their relationship in public, to endure the pitying glances from people who knew what had happened. But before I could take a step toward the exit, Marcus turned. Our eyes met across the crowded hall. He said something to Vanessa, and they started moving in my direction. Panic seized my throat. I couldn't do this, couldn't stand there and make polite conversation while they pretended everything was fine, while he probably introduced Vanessa as his girlfriend, like I'd never existed, like the 2 years we'd spent together were nothing more than a footnote in his ascension through New York's social hierarchy. My gaze swept the room desperately, looking for Sarah, looking for anyone who might serve as a buffer. Instead, my eyes landed on him. A man standing alone near one of the museum's famous Greek statues, studying the marble figure with an intensity that seemed out of place among the social climbers and networking executives. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that was just long enough to suggest he didn't particularly care about conventional corporate grooming. His suit was impeccable, though. Black, perfectly tailored, the kind of craftsmanship that whispered of custom work from European tailors. Even from across the room, I could sense something different about him. While everyone else at this gala seemed to be performing for each other, jockeying for position and attention, he stood apart. Not awkwardly, not like he didn't belong, but like he simply existed on a different plane. Like the social maneuvering happening around him was beneath his notice. Marcus and Vanessa were getting closer. I had maybe 30 seconds before they reached me. The decision formed in my mind before I could fully think it through, born from desperation and too much wine at dinner and the particular kind of recklessness that comes from having your heart shattered and deciding you have nothing left to lose. I moved. The stranger looked up as I approached, dark eyes focusing on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, olive-toned skin that suggested Mediterranean heritage. There was a faint scar along his left temple, barely visible, the kind of imperfection that somehow made him more compelling. His eyes were the color of espresso, and they tracked my movement with the focused attention of a predator watching prey. I should have been intimidated. Instead, I felt a strange flutter of something I hadn't experienced in months. Interest. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice slightly breathless from my rush across the floor. "I know this is completely inappropriate, but I need your help." One dark eyebrow lifted slightly. He didn't speak, just waited for me to continue, his gaze never leaving my face. "My ex-boyfriend is walking over here right now with the woman he cheated on me with," I said quickly, words tumbling out. "And I can't stand here and make small talk with them and pretend I'm fine when I'm not. And I know this is insane, but..." I stopped, taking a breath. "Kiss me. Please. Just for a moment. Make him think I've moved on. Make him think I'm here with someone." The stranger's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe, or curiosity. He glanced past me and I knew without looking that he'd spotted Marcus and Vanessa. When his gaze returned to me, I saw a decision being made, some calculation happening behind those intelligent eyes. "You want me to kiss you to make another man jealous," he said. His voice was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Deep, with a faint accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe. Or Greek. Something that made ordinary words sound like a promise. "Not jealous," I corrected. "Just aware. Aware that I didn't spend the last 3 weeks crying over him. Though that was exactly what I'd done. Aware that I'm fine." "Are you?" he asked. "Fine?" The question caught me off guard. Something about the way he asked it, the genuine curiosity rather than polite social inquiry, made my carefully constructed composure crack slightly. "No," I admitted. "Not even a little bit. But I'd like him to think I am." The stranger studied me for another moment. Then, without warning, his hand came up to cup my jaw, his thumb brushing along my cheekbone in a gesture that was both tender and possessive. "Then let's make him think you are," he murmured. And he kissed me. It wasn't what I expected. I'd been expecting something for show, something theatrical and obvious. Instead, it was deliberate and controlled, and somehow more intimate for its restraint. His lips were warm against mine, the kiss firm but not aggressive. One hand still cradled my face, while the other settled at the small of my back, drawing me closer. I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle with notes of cedar, and something darker, almost smoky. My hands came up instinctively, resting against his chest. I could feel the solid muscle beneath the fine wool of his suit, could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong under my palm. The kiss deepened slightly, just enough to look convincing to anyone watching, and I felt a rush of heat that had nothing to do with the performance and everything to do with the man holding me. When he pulled back, I was breathless. His dark eyes searched mine, and I saw something there I couldn't quite read. Interest. Definitely interest. But also something else. Something almost like recognition, though I was certain I'd never seen this man before in my life. I would have remembered. "Is he watching?" I whispered. "He's watching," the stranger confirmed, his thumb still tracing patterns on my lower back, that were making it difficult to think straight. And he doesn't look pleased. Good. That was good. That was exactly what I wanted. So why did I suddenly not care about Marcus at all? Too focused on the man still holding me like I was something precious. Thank you, I managed. I know that was weird. I'm sorry, I just... Don't apologize, he said quietly. I'm Dante. The name suited him. Classical, powerful, with that hint of Italian heritage I'd suspected. Emma, I replied, and I really am sorry for ambushing you like that. I promise I'm not usually this dramatic. The corner of his mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. I don't mind drama, Emma. In fact, I find I'm quite drawn to it. Before I could respond, a voice cut through our bubble. Emma. Marcus. Of course. I'd almost forgotten why I'd asked Dante to kiss me in the first place, too caught up in the actual experience to remember the performance aspect. Dante's hand remained on my back as I turned, his presence solid and reassuring behind me. Marcus stood 2 feet away, Vanessa attached to his side like a barnacle. Up close, she was even more perfect than I'd realized. Blonde hair in beachy waves, model thin, with the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genes and expensive maintenance. Everything I wasn't. Marcus, I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. Vanessa. Enjoying the gala? Marcus's jaw was tight, his eyes flicking between me and Dante with barely concealed anger. I didn't know you were coming tonight. Sarah didn't mention it when I spoke to her last week. Of course he'd been talking to Sarah, probably trying to find out how I was doing, if I was falling apart. The thought made my spine stiffen. It was a last-minute decision, I said smoothly. Dante had an extra ticket, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. The lie came easily, and Dante's hand tightened slightly on my back in what might have been approval. Dante, Marcus repeated, his attention shifting fully to the man beside me. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe even alarm. Dante Salvatore. We've met. Dante's voice was polite, but there was an edge to it that hadn't been there before. Marcus swallowed visibly. No, I've heard of you. Your family's investments in real estate, the import business. He was babbling slightly, which was unusual for Marcus. He was normally smooth, confident to the point of arrogance. You're somewhat of a legend in financial circles. How flattering, Dante said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. His hand moved from my back to my hip, a possessive gesture that sent a shiver through me. Emma and I were just discussing the Greco-Roman exhibit. Have you seen it? It was a dismissal, polite but unmistakable. Marcus seemed to recognize it, his face flushing slightly. Vanessa tugged on his arm, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand its source. We should find our table, she said, her voice high and breathy. The dinner service will start soon. Marcus didn't move for a moment, still staring at Dante like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then his gaze shifted back to me, and I saw something in his expression I didn't expect. Concern. Maybe even fear. Emma, can I talk to you for a moment? Alone? No, I said simply. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Dante. Emma, Marcus started. The lady has made her preference clear, Dante interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. I suggest you respect it. There was a moment of tension where I genuinely thought Marcus might push back. He'd always had a problem with being told no, with not getting his way. It was one of the many red flags I'd ignored during our relationship. But something in Dante's expression, or maybe his tone, made Marcus think better of it. Right, Marcus said stiffly. Of course. Enjoy your evening, Emma. He turned and left, Vanessa stumbling slightly in her heels as he pulled her away faster than was strictly polite. I watched them disappear into the crowd, feeling a strange mixture of triumph and emptiness. "That went well," I said, weakly, then laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. Dante's hand on my hip steadied me, his thumb rubbing slow circles that were probably meant to be comforting, but were having a different effect entirely. "You're shaking," he observed. I was. Now that the adrenaline of the confrontation was fading, I felt like I might come apart at the seams. The champagne I'd had earlier on an empty stomach wasn't helping. "I should go," I said, taking a step back from Dante's touch, immediately missing the warmth of it. "Thank you, really, for playing along. I'm sorry I dragged you into my mess." "Where will you go?" Dante asked. I hadn't really thought about it. Back to my tiny apartment, probably. Maybe order takeout and watch something mindless on Netflix until I could sleep, though sleep had been elusive lately. "Home," I said vaguely. "I'll call an Uber." "Have dinner with me instead." The invitation caught me completely off guard. I stared at him, trying to figure out if he was serious or just being polite. His expression gave nothing away. "You don't have to do that," I said. "We're already at a dinner," he pointed out. "The gala includes a meal. Sit with me. Let me ensure your ex-boyfriend spends the entire evening watching you enjoy yourself." It was a bad idea. I knew it was a bad idea. Dante was clearly way out of my league, the kind of man who probably had models and actresses fighting for his attention. This was just a momentary amusement for him, a way to pass the time at a boring charity event. And yet, "Okay," I heard myself say. "Yes?" "Dinner." His smile, when it came, transformed his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. "Excellent. Come." He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation I took it. The fabric of his suit was soft under my fingers, and I could feel the solid muscle of his forearm. He led me through the crowd with the kind of easy confidence that suggested he'd been navigating high society events his entire life. People moved out of our way without him having to ask, conversations pausing as we passed. I noticed several women staring at Dante with obvious interest, their gazes sliding to me with poorly concealed curiosity, and, in some cases, envy. Who was I? Their expressions seemed to ask. Who was this nobody on Dante Salvatore's arm? I wondered the same thing. The dinner tables were set up in the museum's main hall, round, tables draped in white cloth with elaborate centerpieces of white roses and gold accents. Dante guided me to a table near the front, one with a small placard that read, "Reserved." The other seats at the table were empty. "You're sitting alone?" I asked as he pulled out my chair. "I prefer it," he said simply. Most of the conversation at these events is tedious. People trying to impress me or gain favor. It becomes exhausting. "And I'm different?" I asked as he took the seat beside me, close enough that our knees almost touched under the table. "You asked me to kiss you to make another man jealous," Dante said, amusement coloring his tone. "You didn't know who I was, didn't care about my name or my reputation. You were simply desperate and honest about it. I found it refreshing." "Glad my emotional breakdown could be entertaining," I said dryly. He laughed, a low sound that I felt in my chest. "Not entertaining. Honest. There's a difference." A waiter appeared with wine, pouring red into our glasses without asking our preference. I took a sip, grateful for something to do with my hands. Across the room, I could see Marcus and Vanessa at their table, surrounded by people I recognized from society photos. Marcus kept glancing in our direction, his expression stormy. "Tell me about him," Dante said, following my gaze. "Your ex." I didn't particularly want to talk about Marcus, but something about Dante's genuine interest made the words come easier than they should have. "We met 2 years ago at a gallery opening. He was charming, successful, came from old money. My mother was thrilled. I thought I was lucky." I took another sip of wine. Turns out he was just looking for someone appropriate to have on his arm for family events. Someone who knew which fork to use and wouldn't embarrass him in front of his investors. And the other woman? Vanessa. They worked together at his father's investment firm. He said I was being paranoid when I said I thought something was going on between them. Made me feel crazy for even suggesting it. Then I came home early from a nursing shift and found them in our bed. The memory still stung, even after 3 weeks. The shock of it, the humiliation. He apologized, said it was a mistake, that he loved me. But I'd heard him on the phone with her the week before, promising her that he was going to end things with me soon, that she just needed to be patient. And yet, he seems displeased to see you've moved on, Dante observed. Maybe he expected me to fall apart, I said, to be waiting around when he inevitably got bored with Vanessa and decided to come back. Men like that always think they can return, Dante said, and there was something cold in his voice. They believe the world revolves around them, that their choices are the only ones that matter. They discard people and expect gratitude when they pick them back up. It was an oddly specific observation, and I wondered what experiences had shaped that perspective. But before I could ask, the first course arrived, some delicate arrangement of scallops and microgreens that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "What do you do, Emma?" Dante asked as we ate. "When you're not crashing charity galas and kissing strangers?" "I'm a nurse," I said. "Pediatric ICU at Mount Sinai. I usually work nights, but I traded shifts so I could come tonight. Sarah was very insistent that I needed to get out." "Sarah is a good friend," Dante said. "She is," I agreed. "She's been keeping me sane these past few weeks, letting me cry on her couch, bringing me food, forcing me to shower and pretend to be a functional human being." "And are you? A functional human being?" I considered the question seriously. "I'm getting there. Some days are better than others. Today was supposed to be a good day, actually. I woke up and didn't immediately think about Marcus, didn't feel that crushing weight in my chest. Then I came here and saw him, and it all came rushing back. But you didn't fall apart," Dante pointed out. "You walked up to a stranger and demanded he kiss you. That takes courage. Or insanity. Sometimes they're the same thing." We talked through dinner, conversation flowing with surprising ease. Dante asked about my work, seeming genuinely interested in stories about my young patients, the challenges of pediatric intensive care, the small victories that made the difficult days worthwhile. In turn, I learned that he was involved in various businesses, import-export primarily, with investments in real estate and hospitality. He was deliberately vague about the details, and I got the sense that his business dealings were complex and not entirely suited for polite dinner conversation. He'd grown up in Sicily, moved to New York in his early 20s, and had built an empire through what he called strategic opportunities and carefully cultivated relationships, which told me almost nothing, but I was too caught up in the way he looked at me when I talked, like I was the only person in the room, to press for details. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate creation that melted on my tongue, I'd almost forgotten about Marcus entirely. Almost. "He's still watching," Dante murmured, his hand coming to rest on my knee under the table. The touch sent electricity through me, and I had to work to keep my expression neutral. "Let him watch," I said, surprising myself with the boldness. Dante's eyes darkened with something that made my pulse race. "Careful, Emma. You're playing a dangerous game." "Maybe I'm tired of being careful," I said. "Being careful got me a cheating boyfriend and a broken heart. Maybe it's time I tried something different." "Different how?" His thumb traced patterns on my knee, making it difficult to think straight. "I don't know," I admitted. "But this, tonight, feeling like someone actually wants to spend time with me, wants to listen when I talk. It's the best I've felt in weeks, so maybe different means taking chances, being spontaneous. Spontaneity can be dangerous, Dante said, but there was approval in his tone. Sometimes, dangerous is exactly what you need. Before he could respond, the dinner service concluded, and people began migrating to the museum's other galleries, where a jazz band was setting up for dancing. Dante stood, offering his hand. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a question. I took his hand, letting him lead me to where couples were beginning to gather on the makeshift dance floor. The band started playing something slow and sultry, and Dante pulled me close, one hand splayed across my lower back, the other holding mine against his chest. We moved together with surprising synchronicity, and I realized he was an excellent dancer. Not the awkward shuffling most men did at events like this, but actual dancing, leading me with confident ease through turns and steps I didn't know I knew how to follow. "You're good at this," I said, looking up at him. "My mother insisted on dance lessons," he said. "She believed a gentleman should know how to properly escort a lady." "Is that what you are? A gentleman?" Something flickered in his eyes. "When the situation calls for it." The implication that he could be something other than a gentleman sent a thrill through me that I probably shouldn't have felt. We danced through 2 more songs, and I was hyper-aware of every point of contact between us, his hand burning through the silk of my dress, his chest solid against mine, the way our thighs occasionally brushed as we moved. When I finally glanced around the room, I spotted Marcus standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching us with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Not quite anger, not quite jealousy. Something more like fear. "Your ex looks like he's seen a ghost," Dante observed, following my gaze. "Maybe he's realizing what he lost," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Marcus had never looked at me the way Dante was looking at me now, like I was something rare and valuable, like he was memorizing every detail of my face. The song ended, and Dante led me off the dance floor toward one of the quieter galleries. We stood in front of a massive painting, some Renaissance piece featuring angels and dramatic lighting, though I was too aware of Dante's presence beside me to pay much attention to the art. "Emma," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." The serious tone made me turn to face him. "What is it?" "When your ex recognized my name earlier, the way he reacted, you should know that wasn't just because of my business reputation." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "My family, our business dealings, they're not always strictly conventional." I waited, sensing there was more. "I told you I'm involved in import-export, real estate, hospitality. That's all true. But there are other aspects of my business that exist in, shall we say, gray areas. My family has certain connections, certain obligations that complicate matters." Understanding dawned slowly. "You're telling me you're connected to organized crime?" "I'm telling you that my business operates in ways that would make most law-abiding citizens uncomfortable," he said. "I'm telling you that your ex-boyfriend recognized my name because men in his social circle know to be careful around men in mine. I'm telling you that kissing you tonight, dancing with you, it wasn't just helping a stranger. It was marking you as under my protection, whether you meant to ask for that or not." I should have been frightened, should have made my excuses and left immediately. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me. "Are you dangerous?" I asked directly. "Yes." No hesitation, no attempt to soften the truth. "Have you hurt people?" "Yes." "Would you hurt me?" "Never." The certainty in his voice was absolute. We stood there, the noise of the gala fading into background hum, just looking at each other. I was at a crossroads, I realized. I could thank him for a lovely evening, leave, and never see him again. Go back to my safe, predictable life. Or I could step forward into something unknown and potentially dangerous. following this strange pull I felt toward a man I'd just met. A man who'd just admitted to being exactly the kind of person my mother had always warned me about. "I should probably leave," I said. "Probably," Dante agreed. Neither of us moved. "This is crazy," I continued. "We just met. I don't know you. You just told me you're involved in criminal activity." "All true. But I don't want to leave." Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "Then don't." "I'm not usually like this," I said, even as I stepped closer to him. "I don't take risks. I don't kiss strangers or get involved with dangerous men. I'm the responsible one, the careful one." "Maybe it's time to be someone else," Dante said, echoing my earlier words back to me. His hand came up to cup my face, and I leaned into the touch without thinking. "Emma, I'm going to give you an out. One chance. Walk away now, and I'll ensure your ex-boyfriend never bothers you again. Consider my debt to you for that kiss paid in full. Or stay, and acknowledge that this thing between us, whatever it is worth exploring despite the risks." I thought about Marcus, about 2 years spent molding myself into what he wanted, being careful and appropriate, and ultimately disposable. I thought about my tiny apartment, my lonely nights, the future I'd planned that had crumbled like tissue paper. I thought about Dante's hand on my face, the way he'd looked at me during dinner like I was fascinating, the feeling of dancing in his arms like we'd been doing it for years instead of minutes. "I'm staying," I said. His smile was slow and devastating. "Then let me take you somewhere less public. We need to talk, really talk, and I'd prefer not to have an audience." He led me out of the museum through a side entrance, where a car was already waiting, a sleek black Mercedes, driver standing at attention. Dante handed me into the back seat with old-world courtesy, then slid in beside me. The privacy screen between us and the driver was already up. "Where are we going?" I asked, as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. "My home," Dante said. "I have questions for you, Emma, and you have questions for me. Better to have those conversations in private." I should have insisted on going somewhere public. Should have at least texted Sarah to let her know where I was. Instead, I settled back against the leather seat and watched the city lights blur past the window, Dante's presence beside me feeling both dangerous and inevitable. The drive took 20 minutes, heading uptown to a building I recognized as one of the most exclusive addresses in Manhattan. The doorman greeted Dante by name, eyes widening slightly when he saw me, but too professional to comment. The elevator required a key to access the penthouse level. We rode up in silence, tension building with each floor we passed. Dante's penthouse was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Expensive, obviously, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. But it wasn't ostentatious. The furniture was comfortable, lived in. Books lined one wall, actual books, well-worn and organized with a system that suggested they were read regularly, not just for show. Art hung on the walls, but not the kind meant to impress guests. Personal pieces, photographs, a child's drawing framed like it was priceless. "This isn't what I expected," I admitted, walking to the windows. "What did you expect?" Dante shrugged out of his suit jacket, draping it over a chair. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, handed one to me. "Something more, I don't know. Showy. Men who need to show off their wealth are compensating for other inadequacies," Dante said. "I have nothing to prove." I sipped the drink. Whiskey, smooth and expensive, burning pleasantly down my throat. "You said you had questions for me." "I do." He settled onto the couch, and after a moment I joined him, careful to maintain a respectable distance. "Why nursing? Pediatric ICU specifically?" It wasn't what I'd expected. I'd thought he'd ask about Marcus, about my life, about whether I understood what I was getting into. My little brother was sick when we were kids, I said. Leukemia. He spent months in the hospital, and there was this one nurse, Sandra, who made everything less terrifying. She explained things in ways we could understand, made my brother laugh even when he felt awful, held my mother when she broke down. She made me want to be that person for other families going through the worst moments of their lives. Your brother? Dante asked gently. He survived. He's in college now, studying to be a teacher. Completely healthy. No lasting effects. We got lucky. That's good, Dante said, and I could tell he meant it. And your family? They know about your ex? My mother knows. She's devastated. Not because I'm heartbroken, but because Marcus came from good family. She'd already planned the wedding in her head. I laughed bitterly. She keeps calling to ask if I'm sure it's really over, if maybe I'm overreacting. Mothers can be complicated, Dante said. Mine passed away 5 years ago, but she had very specific ideas about what my life should look like, who I should marry, how I should conduct business. We disagreed frequently. I'm sorry, I said. About your mother. So am I. We just started to understand each other when she got sick. He paused. She would have liked you. She always said I needed someone who wasn't afraid to challenge me, who would see past the reputation to the man beneath. And do I asked. See past the reputation? I don't know yet, Dante said honestly. You know almost nothing about me except what I've told you in the last few hours. You're basing your decision to be here on instinct and attraction, and possibly the desire to do something reckless after being hurt. Is that a bad thing? No, he said, but I need you to understand what staying means, what I am, what my life involves. You need to make an informed choice, Emma, not an impulsive one. Then inform me, I said, setting my glass down. Tell me exactly what I'm getting into. Dante studied me for a long moment, then nodded. My family came from Sicily 3 generations ago. We built businesses, legitimate and otherwise. We provide services that exist in the spaces between legal and illegal. Protection for businesses in neighborhoods the police ignore. Loans for people banks won't touch. Import channels for goods that are expensive to bring through traditional means. You're talking about loan sharking and smuggling, I said bluntly. Among other things, he acknowledged. We also run legitimate restaurants, hotels, real estate holdings. But yes, there are aspects of the business that violate the law. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise. Have you killed people? I wasn't sure I wanted the answer, but I needed to ask. Yes. Again, no hesitation. In self-defense, in defense of my people, in situations where it was them or me. I'm not a psychopath, Emma. I don't take life lightly. But in my world, sometimes violence is unavoidable. I should have been running for the door. Instead, I found myself asking, "What do you want from me?" I don't know, he admitted. When you approached me tonight, I thought you were beautiful, desperate, and amusing. I was bored at that gala, and you offered a distraction. But then, I kissed you, and something shifted. I found myself wanting to know more. Who you were, why you were hurting, what made you bold enough to ask a stranger for help. And now? Now, I'm trying to figure out if this feeling, this pull I have toward you, is worth the complication it will bring to both our lives. He moved closer, his hand coming up to brush a strand of hair behind my ear. Because make no mistake, Emma, if you stay, if we pursue this, it will complicate everything. Your ex-boyfriend will be the least of your concerns. What do you mean? I mean that being with me puts a target on your back. Not everyone approves of my business practices. I have enemies, rivals, people who would love nothing more than to find a weakness they could exploit. Being connected to me, even casually, makes you a potential target. That's terrifying, I said honestly. It is, he agreed. Which is why I'm giving you the choice. Leave now. Walk away. Go back to your safe life. I'll make sure your ex never bothers you again. Ensure he returns any property or money that's rightfully yours, and we'll part as friendly strangers. Or stay. Accept that there's something between us worth exploring. Let me protect you while we figure out what this is. But understand that choosing me means accepting my world, my risks, my complications. I looked at him, really looked at him. This dangerous, powerful man who'd kissed me at a stranger's request, danced with me like I mattered, brought me to his home and told me the truth, even though it would have been easier to lie. I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm also more interested in you than I've been in anything in years. That probably makes me insane. Probably, Dante agreed, but he was smiling. But I find I appreciate a bit of insanity. If I do this, if I stay, I need ground rules, I said, my practical nursing brain kicking in despite the insanity of the situation. I won't lie for you. I won't break the law. My career matters to me, and I won't do anything that would jeopardize my nursing license. Agreed. I need to maintain my own life, my apartment, my job, my friends. I won't disappear into your world completely. Agreed, though I will insist on certain security measures. And we take this slow, I said. I just got out of a serious relationship. I'm not ready to jump into another one, especially not one this complicated. Dante's expression was unreadable. How slow? I don't know, but slower than showing up at your penthouse on the night we met. You're already at my penthouse on the night we met, he pointed out. Yes, which is why everything else needs to be slower, I countered. He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. Fair enough. Slow, on your terms, with ground rules and boundaries. I can work with that. Really? I'd expected more pushback. Really? Emma, I'm not your ex. I don't need to control you or mold you into something you're not. If anything, I'm drawn to you precisely because you're so different from the women in my usual circles. You're honest, ethical, you care about people. Those qualities are rare in my world. I'm still not convinced this isn't insane. It probably is, Dante said. But sometimes the insane choices are the ones worth making. He stood, offering his hand. It's late. Let me have my driver take you home. I let him pull me to my feet, but I didn't release his hand. Thank you, I said. For tonight, for being honest with me, for giving me a choice. Thank you for the kiss, he replied, and for trusting me enough to come here, to listen. We stood there for a moment, the air between us charged with possibility. Then Dante leaned down, his lips brushing my forehead, in a gesture that was somehow more intimate than our earlier kiss. Go home, Emma, he murmured. Sleep on this. If you wake up tomorrow and decide this is too much, too crazy, I'll understand. But if you want to see where this goes, call me. He pressed a card into my hand, thick cardstock with just a name and number. No business affiliation, no title. Just Dante Salvatore and 10 digits. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal. The driver was silent, professional, and I spent the whole ride staring at the card in my hand, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. When I finally walked into my tiny studio, still wearing Sarah's borrowed dress, it was past midnight. I kicked off my heels and sat on my bed, pulling out my phone. 23 messages from Sarah, increasingly frantic, asking where I was and if I was okay. I called her. She answered on the first ring. Emma, oh my God, I've been worried sick. You disappeared from the gala and didn't answer your phone and— I'm fine, I interrupted. I'm sorry I worried you. Something came up. Something or someone? Sarah asked suspiciously. "You met a guy, didn't you? Please tell me you didn't go home with some random man at a charity gala." "His name is Dante," I said. "And I didn't go home with him. Not in the way you're thinking." "But you went somewhere with him?" It wasn't a question. I told her everything. The kiss, the dinner, the dancing, Marcus's reaction, the conversation in Dante's penthouse. By the time I finished, Sarah was silent for a long moment. "Emma," she finally said. "Dante Salvatore. You went to the penthouse of Dante Salvatore? You know him?" "Everyone knows of him," Sarah said. "Or at least everyone in certain circles. Emma, he's not just some businessman. His family is connected. Like, connected. Italian organized crime, protection rackets, the whole thing. He's been investigated multiple times, but nothing ever sticks, because people are too afraid to testify against him." "He told me all that," I said. "He was honest about what his business involves." "And you're okay with that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm processing." But Sarah, the way he looked at me, the way he treated me, it was like I mattered, like I was interesting and valuable and worth his time. When's the last time I felt that way? Sarah sighed. "Marcus really did a number on you, didn't he?" "Maybe. But this isn't just about Marcus. This is about me feeling alive for the first time in months, maybe years." "Just be careful," Sarah said. "Men like Dante, they're dangerous in ways that go beyond broken hearts. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure what being careful meant in this context. After we hung up, I got ready for bed, going through the familiar routine of washing my face, brushing my teeth, setting out scrubs for tomorrow's shift. Normal things, grounding things. But my mind kept wandering back to Dante, the way his hand had felt on my back, his honesty about his life, the promise of protection, of being seen, of mattering to someone. I picked up the card from my nightstand, running my thumb over the embossed numbers. I could call, right now. Or I could wait until morning, when I was rested and thinking clearly. Or I could throw the card away and pretend tonight never happened. I fell asleep with the card still in my hand, dreaming of dark eyes and dangerous smiles and the feeling of being held like I was something precious. I woke to my alarm at 6 a.m., grateful that I'd had the foresight to set it even in my questionable state last night. The card was still clutched in my hand, the numbers already memorized, even though I'd only glanced at them once. My shift at the hospital started at 7, and I had 45 minutes to shower, dress, and get to Mount Sinai. I moved through my morning routine on autopilot, my mind still processing everything from last night. In the bright light of day, the whole thing felt like a fever dream. Had I really kissed a stranger? Gone to his penthouse? Agreed to potentially date a man involved in organized crime? The rational part of my brain screamed that I needed to throw the card away and forget Dante Salvatore existed. The rest of me remembered the way he'd made me feel seen, valued, safe despite the obvious danger he represented. I was still debating with myself when I walked into the PICU for my shift. The unit was typically chaotic, 12 beds filled with critically ill children, monitors beeping, worried parents hovering by bedsides, the particular controlled chaos that came with managing the sickest pediatric patients in the hospital. "Emma!" My colleague Lisa grabbed me as soon as I walked through the doors. "Thank God you're here. It's been a nightmare night. We've got a new admission in bed 7, post-op cardiac repair. Still sedated but stable. Bed 3 is probably going to extubate today if his numbers hold. And bed 9's mother has been asking for you specifically." I dove into work gratefully, letting the familiar rhythm of nursing tasks override my spinning thoughts about Dante. This was real. This mattered. Taking care of children who couldn't take care of themselves, Supporting families through the worst days of their lives, this was what I was good at. By lunchtime, I'd successfully helped extubate the patient in bed 3, watched him take his first independent breaths in 4 days, while his parents cried with relief. I'd sat with the mother in bed 9, holding her hand while she talked about her fears, her hopes, her exhaustion. I'd carefully titrated medications for my post-op cardiac patient, monitoring every vital sign, adjusting ventilator settings, being the eyes and hands that kept a tiny heart beating. I was checking lab results on my computer when my phone buzzed, an unknown number, but I knew immediately who it was. "I hope you slept well. I've thought of nothing but you since you left. Would you have dinner with me tonight? Somewhere public, slow, on your terms. D." My heart did something complicated in my chest. I should have ignored it, should have deleted the number and gone back to my safe, predictable life. Instead, I found myself typing, "I work until 7. Somewhere quiet? I don't think I can handle anywhere fancy tonight." His response came almost immediately. "I know a place. Small Italian restaurant in the village. Family run, excellent food. Privacy. I'll send a car for you at 7:30. I can take the subway. I know you can, but I'd prefer to ensure you arrive safely. Humor me?" I stared at my phone, at this small negotiation that somehow felt significant. He wasn't demanding, wasn't insisting, just asking. Making his preference known but leaving the choice to me. Fine. But the car is excessive. Everything about me is excessive, Emma. You'll get used to it. I smiled despite myself, then caught Lisa watching me with raised eyebrows. "New guy?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "It's complicated." "It's always complicated," Lisa said. "But you're smiling. I haven't seen you smile like that in months. Whoever he is, I like him already." If only she knew. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, I was exhausted in the way only a 12-hour ICU shift could make you, but I was also buzzing with anticipation. I changed out of my scrubs in the locker room, pulling on jeans and a soft blue sweater, running my fingers through my hair, and hoping I didn't look as tired as I felt. The black Mercedes was waiting outside the hospital exactly at 7:30. Same driver as last night, same professional courtesy. He opened the door for me, and I slid into the back seat, feeling like I was stepping into an alternate universe, where cars waited for me, and dangerous men sent messages about thinking of nothing else. The restaurant Dante had chosen was everything he'd promised. Small, tucked away on a quiet street in the village, the kind of place you'd walk past 100 times without noticing. The exterior was understated, just a small sign in Italian script, and warm light glowing through the windows. Dante was waiting outside, dressed more casually than last night. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, leather jacket that looked worn and comfortable. He looked less like a businessman and more like something out of a magazine spread, dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. "You came," he said as I approached, and I heard genuine relief in his voice, like he'd actually worried I wouldn't show. I said I would. "Many people say things they don't mean," Dante said. "I'm learning that you're not one of them." He opened the restaurant door, his hand settling at the small of my back as he guided me inside. The interior was cozy, maybe 10 tables, all occupied by what looked like regulars. The scent of garlic and tomato sauce and fresh bread filled the air. An older woman behind the bar looked up as we entered, her face breaking into a smile. "Dante." She came around the bar, and to my surprise, Dante bent to kiss both her cheeks, exchanging rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. She turned to me, her eyes warm and assessing. "And this is?" "Emma," Dante said. "Emma, this is Sophia. She and her husband Antonio own this restaurant. I've been coming here since I first moved to New York." Beautiful, Sophia said, patting my cheek. Much better than those others you bring here. This one has kind eyes. She bustled off, still muttering in Italian, and Dante led me to a corner table, semi-private, but still part of the restaurant's warm atmosphere. Others? I asked as we sat. Sophia has opinions about my dating history, Dante said dryly. She believes I waste time with unsuitable women. And am I suitable? He looked at me, and I felt the weight of his gaze. I think you might be the most suitable woman I've ever met, which is terrifying. Before I could respond, Sophia reappeared with wine and bread, setting them on the table with a stream of Italian directions to Dante, who nodded and responded in kind. She's bringing us the special, he translated. Whatever Antonio made tonight that she thinks we should eat. I hope you don't mind. I don't mind. I took a piece of bread, still warm, and bit into it. Perfect. This is nice. Quiet. Normal. Is that disappointing? Dante asked. You were probably expecting something more dramatic after last night. Honestly, I don't know what I expected, I admitted. This is all so far outside my experience. I've never dated anyone connected to, well, anything illegal. We're not dating, Dante pointed out. This is just dinner, between two people who are attracted to each other and trying to figure out if there's something worth pursuing beyond attraction. Is there? I asked. Tell me something real about yourself, Dante. Something that has nothing to do with your business or your reputation. Something that's just you. He considered this, sipping his wine. I read, he finally said. Obsessively. Fiction mostly, though I'll read anything well written. When I was young, books were escape. My father wanted me to follow in his footsteps, to be hard and ruthless, to see the world only in terms of power and territory. But my mother loved literature, poetry, stories. She'd read to me at night, even when I was too old for bedtime stories. Dante's Inferno, obviously. He smiled slightly. But also Shakespeare, Homer, modern fiction. She taught me that there was more to life than the business, that a man could be both strong and thoughtful. She sounds wonderful, I said softly. She was. And stubborn. When my father tried to pull me out of school to work full-time for the family, she threatened to leave him. Actually packed bags and everything. He backed down. She's the only person I've ever seen make him back down from anything. Do you miss her? Every day. His honesty was disarming. She's been gone 5 years, and I still find myself wanting to call her when something happens, good or bad. Still hear her voice in my head, telling me to think before I act, to lead with strength, but temper it with wisdom. Sophia returned with plates, and conversation paused, as she served us what looked like homemade ravioli in a butter sage sauce, followed by perfectly cooked chicken with roasted vegetables. It was simple food, elevated to art through quality ingredients and obvious skill. Now you, Dante said as we ate, tell me something real about you. Not Nurse Emma or ex-girlfriend Emma. Just Emma. I thought about it. I paint, I said. Badly, probably. But I love it. Watercolors mostly. I have a little setup in my apartment, just a corner with a folding table and supplies. When I can't sleep, when my brain won't shut off after a difficult shift, I paint. Abstract things, mostly. Colors and shapes and feelings, rather than anything recognizable. It's the only time my mind goes quiet. I'd like to see your work sometime, Dante said. It's really not good, I protested. I don't care if it's good. I care that it's yours, that it's something you create when you need peace. That tells me more about who you are than any polished portfolio ever could. We talked through dinner, conversation ranging from books we'd read to places we'd traveled to childhood memories and embarrassing moments. Dante told me about growing up in Sicily, swimming in the Mediterranean, stealing figs from a neighbor's tree. I told him about summers at my grandmother's house upstate, failed attempts to learn the piano, my brother's cancer diagnosis and recovery. It felt normal, which was perhaps the strangest part. Sitting in this tiny Italian restaurant with a man connected to organized crime, discussing everyday things like we were any other couple on a date. "Why me?" I finally asked, as we shared a slice of tiramisu that Sophia had insisted we needed. "There have to be dozens, hundreds of women who would be interested in you. Women from your world who understand the complications, who wouldn't need everything explained. Why pursue someone like me?" Dante set down his fork, his expression serious. "Because every woman I've dated from my world has wanted me for what I could provide. Power, money, status, protection. They saw Dante Salvatore, head of the organization, not Dante the man. You didn't know who I was when you asked me to kiss you. You just saw a stranger who might help you get through a difficult moment. But now I do know who you are," I pointed out. "And yet, you're still here," he said. "Despite knowing the risks, despite having every reason to run, you're sitting across from me, sharing dessert, asking questions about my mother and my childhood. You see me, Emma, the man and the reputation. And you're trying to reconcile those things rather than running from them or only seeing what you want to see." "I'm still terrified," I admitted. "Good. If you weren't scared, I'd worry about your judgment." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "I can't promise this will be easy. I can't promise there won't be moments when you question everything. But I can promise honesty, protection, and that I will never intentionally hurt you. Those are big promises. I don't make promises I can't keep." We left the restaurant an hour later, stepping out into the cool New York night. The street was quiet, just the distant sound of traffic and the occasional passerby. "Walk with me?" Dante asked. "Just for a bit. I'll have the car follow us." I nodded, and we started walking. No particular destination, just moving through the village streets. Dante's hand found mine, and I let him hold it, marveling at how natural it felt. "I need to tell you something," I said as we walked. "About Marcus. Your ex? He's been texting me. Since last night. He wants to talk, says we need to discuss things. He's never been this persistent before." Dante's hand tightened slightly on mine. "What kind of things does he want to discuss?" "He won't say. Just keeps insisting that I need to hear him out, that it's important. I've been ignoring the messages, but he sent another one during my shift today, saying he was going to come by my apartment if I didn't respond." Something dangerous crossed Dante's face. "He's threatening you." "I don't think he means it that way. He's just... Marcus thinks if he's persistent enough, people will eventually give him what he wants. It's how he operates. And do you want to speak with him?" "No," I said immediately. "I have nothing to say to Marcus. We're done. Seeing him last night just confirmed that. Whatever he wants to discuss, it doesn't change anything." "Would you like me to ensure he stops contacting you?" There was something in Dante's tone that made me look at him sharply. "What do you mean by ensure?" "I mean, I could have a conversation with him. Make it clear that his continued contact is unwanted and won't be tolerated. Nothing violent," he added, seeing my expression. "Just a conversation between men about respecting boundaries." "That feels like it might escalate things," I said slowly. "Or it might end them definitively," Dante countered. "Men like your ex, they need someone to make them understand consequences. You've told him no. He's ignoring that. Sometimes a different messenger is more effective." I thought about it. The feminist part of me bristled at the idea of needing a man to fight my battles. But the practical part, the part that was tired of Marcus's texts and threats and attempts to insert himself back into my life, saw the appeal. "Let me handle it my way first," I finally said. I'll send him one clear message. Tell him explicitly to stop contacting me, that we have nothing to discuss. If he continues after that, then maybe we can revisit the conversation idea." Dante nodded, though I could tell he wasn't entirely satisfied. "But if he shows up at your apartment—" "Then I'll call you," I interrupted. "And the police, in that order." "The police should be first," Dante said. "Probably," I agreed, "but I have a feeling you'd get there faster." We walked in silence for a few minutes, just being together, hands linked, the night settling around us. "I should get home," I said reluctantly. "I have another shift tomorrow, and I need sleep." Dante flagged down the Mercedes that had been slowly following us at a discreet distance. "Let me ride with you," he said, "just to make sure you get home safely." I wanted to protest that I could take care of myself, that I'd been navigating New York alone for years. But I also wanted more time with him, wanted to stretch out this evening a bit longer. "Okay." The drive to my apartment building took 15 minutes. When we arrived, Dante walked me to my door, his hand on my lower back, his body positioned between me and the street, in a way that was probably instinctive protective behavior for him. "Thank you for tonight," I said, as we stood outside my building. "For dinner, for the walk, for just being normal for a few hours." "Thank you for giving me a chance," Dante replied, "for not running when you had every reason to." We stood there for a moment, the space between us charged with possibility. Then Dante leaned down, his lips brushing my forehead, my cheek hovering near my mouth. "May I?" he asked softly. In answer, I closed the distance, kissing him with more confidence than I'd felt last night. This kiss was different from our first, slower, deeper, filled with the knowledge of who we were to each other now, rather than the desperate performance of strangers. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and I melted into him, into this moment of connection and possibility. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "I should go," he said, "before I do something that violates your slow timeline." "Probably smart," I managed, though I was having trouble remembering why slow was important when he was looking at me like I was something rare and precious. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Dante." I watched him walk back to the car, watch the Mercedes pull away into New York traffic. Then I finally went inside, climbing the 4 flights to my studio, feeling lighter than I had in months. I sent Marcus a message before I went to bed. Clear. Unequivocal. "Marcus, stop contacting me. We have nothing to discuss. If you continue to message or threaten to show up at my apartment, I will file for a restraining order. This is my final communication with you. Emma." He read it immediately. Then the 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, his response came through. "You don't understand what you're getting into with Salvatore. I'm trying to help you. He's dangerous, Emma. His family is connected to things you can't imagine. People around him get hurt. I'm worried about you." I stared at the message, anger and something else, something that might have been touched despite myself by his apparent concern, warring in my chest. Then I blocked his number and went to bed. I didn't hear from Marcus for 3 days. 3 blissful days of work and painting and texts from Dante that ranged from good morning messages to random observations about his day to photos of books he thought I'd like. We had dinner twice more, once at another quiet restaurant, once at his penthouse where he cooked for me, producing a pasta dish that rivaled anything I'd eaten in Italy. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" I asked, watching him move around his kitchen with practiced ease. "My mother again," he said. "She believed a man should be self-sufficient, that depending on others for basic survival, needs made you weak. So she taught me to cook, clean, manage a household. My father thought it was ridiculous that we had people for those things, but she insisted. I'm glad she did," I said. This is incredible. We ate on his terrace, overlooking the city, talking about everything and nothing. Dante told me about his week, a combination of legitimate business meetings and vague references to other obligations that I didn't ask about. I told him about my patients, about the 3-year-old who'd been extubated successfully, about the family who'd said goodbye to their daughter, about the small victories and heartbreaking losses that made up my work. "I don't know how you do it," Dante said, "how you care for these children, support these families, knowing that some of them won't make it." "Someone has to," I said simply, "and on the days when we do save them, when a child who shouldn't survive does, when a family gets to take their baby home, those moments make everything else worth it." "You're extraordinary," Dante said, and the way he looked at me made my breath catch. "You see that, don't you? How rare you are." "I'm just a nurse," I protested. "No. You're a person who chooses every day to walk into one of the hardest situations imaginable and try to make it better. That's not just, that's remarkable." On the 4th day, my carefully constructed bubble of happiness popped. I came home from a particularly brutal shift to find my apartment door ajar. Not broken open, not obviously forced, just unlocked and open about 2 inches. Every self-preservation instinct screamed at me to not go inside, to call the police, to wait for help. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called Dante. He answered on the first ring. "Emma? What's wrong?" "My apartment door's open," I said, keeping my voice low. "I didn't leave it open. Someone's been here." "Where are you now?" His voice had gone cold, controlled. "In the hallway. I haven't gone inside." "Good. Don't. Go downstairs to the street. Stay where there are people. I'm sending someone to you now. They'll be there in 3 minutes. Then I'm coming." "Dante, I should call the police." "You can call them once my people have secured the situation," he said. "Please, Emma, trust me. 3 minutes." He hung up before I could argue. I stood in the hallway, staring at my open door, my heart pounding. 2.5 minutes later, 2 men appeared at the top of the stairs. They were dressed normally, jeans and jackets, but there was something about the way they moved, the way they scanned the hallway, that screamed professional security. "Ms. Emma?" the taller one asked. "Mr. Salvatore sent us. We're going to check your apartment. Please wait downstairs." I wanted to argue, to insist on going with them, to maintain some control over the situation. But something in their expressions, combined with Dante's urgency, made me nod and head downstairs. I waited on the street outside my building, watching people pass by, trying to look normal while my mind raced through possibilities. Robbery? But I didn't own anything worth stealing. Random break-in? Possible. But the door hadn't been forced. Had I maybe forgotten to lock it this morning in my exhaustion? That didn't feel right. Dante arrived in his Mercedes 7 minutes later, emerging from the car before it fully stopped. He scanned the street, spotted me, and covered the distance in 3 long strides. "Are you hurt?" His hands came up to cup my face, turning it side to side, checking for injury. "No, I'm fine. I didn't go inside. Your people are up there now." "Good. That's good." He pulled me against his chest, and I let myself lean into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. One of the men from earlier appeared in the doorway of my building, catching Dante's eye. Some silent communication passed between them, and Dante's arms tightened around me. "What?" I asked, pulling back to look at his face. "What did they find?" "Come with me," he said, instead of answering. "I'll show you." My apartment wasn't trashed. That was the first thing I noticed when Dante led me inside, his hand firmly on my back. Everything was mostly where I'd left it. My bed was made, dishes in the sink, painting supplies in their corner. But there were differences. Subtle wrongness that made my skin crawl. My drawers had been opened, not violently but methodically. Contents shifted through. My laptop, which I'd left closed on my desk, was open. And on my bed, placed carefully in the center of my pillow, was a photograph. Me and Marcus from 6 months ago at some charity event, smiling for the camera. Except my face had been crossed out with red marker, and written across the bottom in the same red marker, "Be careful who you trust." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Marcus," I whispered. "Maybe," Dante said, his voice carefully controlled. "But this is fairly sophisticated for a jealous ex-boyfriend. No forced entry, no obvious signs of search. They knew what they were looking for, moved through your space methodically." "What were they looking for?" One of Dante's men answered. "Information, probably." Her laptop was accessed, files searched. They were looking through documents, emails, anything that might connect Ms. Emma to Mr. Salvatore or reveal information about your relationship. "This is because of me," I said, the realization settling like ice in my stomach. "Someone wanted to know about my connection to you." "That's the most likely explanation," Dante agreed. His face was carefully blank, but I could sense the fury he was holding in check. "Emma, I need you to pack a bag. Enough for a few days. You're not staying here." "I can't just leave my apartment." "You can, and you will," he said, and there was no room for argument in his tone. "Someone violated your space, left a threat, accessed your personal information. Until we know who and why, you're not safe here." "Dante, please." He turned to face me fully, his hands coming up to frame my face. "Please, Emma. I can't protect you if you stay here. Let me keep you safe, just for a few days until we sort this out." I wanted to argue, wanted to insist on my independence, on my right to stay in my own home. But the photograph on my bed, my face crossed out in angry red, kept drawing my eye. And underneath the stubborn independence was fear. Real, visceral fear that someone had been in my space, had touched my things, had left a message meant to terrify me. "Okay," I said finally. "A few days. But I need to work my shifts." "I'll have someone drive you, stay with you at the hospital." "That's excessive." "It's necessary," Dante interrupted, "and non-negotiable. You can argue about everything else, but on this, I need you to trust my judgment." I packed quickly, throwing clothes and toiletries into a duffel bag. My painting supplies, because I knew I'd need them. My laptop, though Dante's people had already confiscated it to check for spyware or tracking software. 20 minutes later, I was back in Dante's Mercedes, heading toward his penthouse, my entire life reduced to a single bag. "I'm sorry," Dante said once we were moving through traffic. "This is exactly what I warned you about. Danger by association. Someone wants to know about you because of your connection to me." "Do you know who?" "I have suspicions," he said grimly. "There are several parties who would benefit from finding a weakness in my organization. You, Emma, are now that weakness. So this is about leverage. They want information they can use against you." "Yes." "Will they hurt me?" The question hung in the air between us. "Not if I have anything to say about it," Dante said. "But I need you to understand. This has escalated things. We're no longer talking about a casual relationship, about taking things slow. Someone has identified you as important to me, which means you need protection. Serious, constant protection." "I don't want to live like that," I said. "Looking over my shoulder constantly, having bodyguards, being afraid." "I know," Dante said softly. "And if you want to walk away, if this is too much, I'll arrange protection for you regardless. Make sure you're safe even if we're not together. You don't have to stay with me just because someone threatened you." I looked at him, really looked at him. This dangerous man who'd kissed me at a stranger's request, who cooked pasta and quoted poetry, who read obsessively and missed his mother, who was now offering to protect me even if I chose to leave. "I'm not leaving," I said. "I'm terrified, and I'm angry that someone violated my space, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm not leaving." His hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Then we'll figure this out together." The next few days fell into a strange new routine. I stayed at Dante's penthouse, which was far more comfortable than my apartment, but felt like living in a hotel. I went to work with a driver and a discreet bodyguard, a woman named Maria, who posed as a nursing student, shadowing me for the day. She was professional, competent, and intimidating, despite her friendly demeanor. Dante's people investigated my apartment break-in, working with their own resources rather than involving police. I learned that in Dante's world, law enforcement was a last resort, not a first response. We found 3 listening devices, one of Dante's security people told us on day 3. Hidden in her bedroom, kitchen, and living room. Professional grade, probably placed during the break-in. "So they're listening to everything," I said, feeling nauseated. "Conversations, phone calls, everything." "We're listening," the man corrected. "We've removed them. But yes, for approximately 4 days, someone was monitoring your apartment." "Any leads on who?" Dante asked, his voice dangerous. "Still working on it. The devices are European-made, available mostly in Eastern Europe. That narrows it down to a few possibilities." After he left, I turned to Dante. "Eastern European. That means something to you." "It suggests involvement from the Kozlov organization," Dante said. "Russian mob, based in Brooklyn. We've had disagreements in the past about territorial issues. They've been pushing into areas my family traditionally controls. This could be an attempt to gather intelligence or create leverage. So, this is mob politics. Everything in my world is mob politics," Dante said, "and you're now part of that world, which means you're a piece on the board, whether we like it or not." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at the windows of Dante's penthouse, looking out over the city, trying to process everything that had happened in less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, I'd been a heartbroken nurse living alone, working too many shifts, convinced I'd never trust anyone again. Now I was living with a mob boss, under protection from the Russian Mafia. My entire life upended, because I'd asked a stranger to kiss me at a charity gala. "You're thinking too loudly," Dante's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, wearing just sleep pants, chest bare, hair mussed. He looked younger like this, less dangerous, almost vulnerable. "Sorry. Did I wake you?" "I wasn't sleeping." He crossed to stand beside me at the window. "I was thinking about how to resolve this situation without anyone getting hurt. So far, I'm not coming up with many good options." "What are the bad options?" I asked. "War," he said simply. "If the Kozlovs are trying to establish leverage over me, if they're threatening people under my protection, then there will need to be a response. Something that makes it clear that such actions won't be tolerated." "You mean violence?" "Yes." He didn't try to soften it, didn't try to make it sound better than it was. "In my world, Emma, strength is the only language some people understand. Show weakness, allow a threat to go unanswered, and it invites more aggression." "And me?" I asked. "What happens to me while you're at war with the Russian mob?" "You stay safe," Dante said. "That's non-negotiable. Whatever happens, whatever this costs, you stay safe." "At what price? How many people will get hurt because I asked you to kiss me at a gala?" "That's not on you," Dante said firmly. "The Kozlovs have been looking for an excuse to push boundaries for months. You're just the excuse they chose. If it wasn't you, it would have been something else. That doesn't make me feel better." "It should," he said, "because it means this isn't your fault. You're not responsible for other people's choices, for their violence, for their attempts to gain power. You're just a person who wanted to make her ex-boyfriend jealous and happened to pick the wrong dangerous stranger to help. Despite everything, I laughed. When you put it that way. Come to bed, Dante said, taking my hand. You need sleep. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I let him lead me to the guest bedroom I'd been using, but at the door I hesitated. Dante, could you just stay? I don't mean anything by it, I don't want to be alone tonight. His expression softened. Of course. We climbed into bed together, Dante pulling me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me protectively. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, could feel the warmth of his skin against my cheek. I won't let anything happen to you, he murmured into my hair. I promise, Emma. Whatever it costs, whoever I have to fight, you'll be safe. What about you? I asked. Who keeps you safe? I've been taking care of myself for a long time. Maybe it's time you let someone help with that, I said. His arms tightened around me. Maybe it is. I fell asleep like that, held in the arms of a dangerous man who'd somehow become my safe place, who'd promised protection and meant it, who'd upended my life and made me feel more alive than I had in years. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and I was alone in bed. For a moment I panicked, thinking maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. Maybe Dante had left, or realized what a complication I was, and decided it wasn't worth it. Then I heard voices in the other room, low and urgent, speaking rapid Italian. I got up, pulling on the robe I'd borrowed from Dante, and padded barefoot to the living room. Dante was there with two men I recognized from his security team. They were looking at something on a laptop, expressions serious. What's happening? I asked. All three men turned, and I saw Dante's expression shift from cold calculation to warm concern when he saw me. You should be sleeping, he said, crossing to me. What's wrong? I insisted. Don't shut me out, Dante. If this is about me, I deserve to know. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Show her. One of the men turned the laptop so I could see the screen. It was a photograph, grainy like it had been taken from security footage. Two men, one of whom I recognized immediately despite the poor quality. Marcus. Your ex, Dante said. Meeting with Victor Kozlov 2 nights ago at a restaurant in Brighton Beach. Judging from the body language, they're not strangers. I stared at the photo, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Marcus knows the Russian mob? Apparently. Dante's voice was carefully controlled. Which puts a different spin on things. Your break-in, the listening devices, the warning. It might not be about mob politics at all. It might be about your ex-boyfriend trying to scare you away from me. But why would Marcus have connections to the Kozlovs? That's what we're trying to find out, Dante said. But if I had to guess, financial trouble. Men like Marcus, from old money families, sometimes they make bad investments, get in over their heads, and look for alternative financing sources. The Kozlovs are always happy to loan money to people with social connections, at very high interest rates. So Marcus owes them money. Possibly. Or he's trying to gain their favor for some reason. Either way, he's brought you into something dangerous, and he knows it. Those texts warning you about me, projecting his own guilt. That son of a bitch, I breathed. All this time, Marcus had been positioning himself as the concerned ex, warning me about Dante's danger, when he was the one who'd brought the threat to my door. We need to have a conversation with Marcus, Dante said, and there was steel in his voice. And possibly with Victor Kozlov as well. I want to be there, I said. When you talk to Marcus, I want to hear what he has to say. Absolutely not, Dante said, immediately. It could be dangerous. It's my life he's playing with, I countered. My apartment he violated, or had violated. My safety he's compromised. I deserve to face him, to hear the truth directly. We stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Dante sighed. Fine, but you don't speak. You don't engage. You observe only. And Maria will be with you the entire time. At the first sign of trouble, you leave. Understood? Understood. Dante nodded to his people. Set up a meeting. Tonight. Somewhere we control. Make it clear to Marcus that this is not optional. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. at a warehouse Dante's family owned in Queens. I spent the day at work, trying to focus on my patients, while my mind spun with what was coming. By the time Maria picked me up at the hospital, I felt sick with anticipation and dread. The warehouse was exactly what I expected from a mob meeting location. Huge, mostly empty, cold concrete, and harsh lighting. Dante was already there with 4 of his people, all armed, all watching the entrance. He'd dressed for this, all in black, his face hard in a way I hadn't seen before. This was Dante Salvatore, the mob boss, not Dante the man who cooked pasta and quoted poetry. You don't have to do this, he said when I arrived. You can wait in the car, and I'll tell you everything after. I need to do this, I said. He studied my face, then nodded. Stay with Maria, no matter what happens. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later, looking nervous and out of place. He was dressed casually, jeans and a jacket, but I could see sweat on his forehead despite the cool temperature. His eyes widened when he saw me. Emma, what are you doing here? She's here because this involves her, Dante said before I could respond. Have a seat, Marcus. We need to talk. I don't think I should. 2 of Dante's men stepped forward, and Marcus quickly sat in the chair they indicated, in the center of the open space. Dante circled him slowly, predatory. Let's talk about your relationship with Viktor Kozlov, Dante said conversationally. Marcus's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. We have photographs of you meeting with him. We know about your gambling debts, the money you borrowed, the terms of repayment. What we want to know is what deal you made regarding Emma. I didn't. I would never, Marcus started. Someone broke into Emma's apartment, Dante continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Placed listening devices, left a threatening message. That same someone has been targeting my people, gathering intelligence. And you, Marcus, have been meeting with one of my competitors. So I'll ask you again, what deal did you make? Marcus was shaking now. They approached me, after they saw us at the gala, after they realized Emma was involved with you. They said, if I provided information about her, about your relationship, they'd forgive my debts. I swear, I didn't know they were going to break into her apartment. I was supposed to stay in touch with her, find out information, report back on where she was, who she was seeing. You spied on me, I said, unable to stay silent. You pretended to be concerned while feeding information about me to the Russian mob so they could erase your gambling debts. Marcus finally looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Emma. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I was desperate. They were threatening me, threatening my family. I thought I was just providing harmless information, details about your relationship, nothing that would actually hurt you. Harmless? I stepped forward, ignoring Maria's attempt to hold me back. They bugged my apartment, Marcus. Listened to my private conversations, my phone calls. They violated my space and made me afraid in my own home. Because of information you provided. I didn't know, Marcus repeated, but his voice was weak. That's not enough, Dante said coldly. Your ignorance doesn't absolve your responsibility. You made choices, Marcus. You chose to protect yourself at Emma's expense. You chose to collaborate with people who have hurt innocents to settle their scores. Those choices have consequences. What are you going to do to me? Marcus asked, and I heard real fear in his voice. Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he said, That depends on you. You're going to go back to the Kozlovs. You're going to tell them that Emma and I have ended our relationship, that she's no longer a person of interest. You're going to provide them with false information, lead them away from Emma completely. And in exchange, I won't kill you." Marcus swallowed audibly. "And my debts to them are your problem to solve," Dante said without sympathy. "You made a deal with the devil, Marcus. Now you have to live with it. But Emma is off limits. You ensure that, or I ensure your family is planning your funeral. Those are your options." "I'll do it," Marcus said quickly. "I'll tell them whatever you want. Just please, don't hurt me." "Get him out of my sight," Dante said, disgusted. 2 of his men hauled Marcus to his feet and escorted him out. As soon as he was gone, Dante turned to me. "Are you satisfied? Did you hear what you needed to?" "He sold me out to cover gambling debts," I said, still processing. "He pretended to be worried about me while actively helping people who wanted to hurt me." "Men like Marcus only care about themselves," Dante said. "It's why they're so easy to manipulate. But he'll do what I told him. He's too afraid not to." "Will that be enough? Will the Kozlovs really back off just because Marcus says we're not together anymore?" "No," Dante admitted. "But it buys us time. Time to find another solution that doesn't involve open war." He crossed to me, his hands coming up to frame my face. "I'm sorry you had to see that, had to hear what he did. But I needed you to understand what we're dealing with, who your ex really is." "I'm glad I was here," I said. "I needed to hear the truth from him, needed to see it for myself." "Come on," Dante said, taking my hand. "Let's go home." Home, I realized, no longer meant my little studio apartment in Brooklyn. It meant Dante's penthouse, meant safety and protection. And this dangerous man who'd somehow become the most important person in my life. Over the following weeks, things slowly settled into a new normal. The Kozlovs, whether because of Marcus's misinformation or because Dante had made other moves I wasn't privy to, stopped their active surveillance. My apartment was deemed safe enough to visit with escort, though I spent most nights at Dante's place. I was formally introduced to more of his organization, the people who worked for him, depended on him, looked to him for protection and leadership. They were surprisingly normal for the most part. Family men and women, people with regular lives who happened to operate in the gray areas of society. Dante began teaching me about his world, explaining the structures and hierarchies, the codes of conduct, the reasons behind rules that seemed arbitrary from the outside. I learned that his organization provided legitimate services to communities the law ignored, protection for businesses police didn't care about, fair loans for people banks wouldn't touch, arbitration for disputes that couldn't be brought to court. Yes, there was violence sometimes. Yes, there were activities that crossed legal lines, but there was also a system of honor, loyalty, mutual protection that I'd never encountered in my supposedly legitimate world. "You're romanticizing it," Sarah said when I tried to explain during one of our rare coffee dates. "Emma, he's a criminal. He hurts people. Just because he's good to you doesn't change that." "I'm not romanticizing anything," I defended. "I see him clearly, Sarah, the good and the bad. And yes, he's done things I don't agree with, things I'll never be comfortable with. But he's also honest about who he is, protective of the people he cares about, loyal to a fault." "Can you say the same about Marcus? About any of the supposedly upstanding men I've dated?" Sarah sighed. "I just don't want to see you get hurt. Or worse." "I know," I said softly. "But Sarah, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with someone who sees me, all of me, and wants me anyway. That's not something I'm willing to give up, regardless of the complications." 3 months after the night at the gala, Dante took me back to the same museum for another charity event. This time, I was on his arm officially, introduced as his partner, no longer hiding what we were to each other. "Nervous?" Dante asked, as we walked into the grand hall. "A little," I admitted. "Last time I was here, I was heartbroken and desperate. Now I'm dating a mob boss and living in a penthouse. It's quite a change. Regrets?" "None," I said honestly. We made our rounds, Dante introducing me to legitimate businessmen and women, people who knew exactly who he was, but chose to work with him anyway, because he delivered results. I saw the respect he commanded, the way people deferred to him, not out of fear, but genuine regard. Later, we danced, and it felt like coming full circle. The same music, the same dimmed lights, but everything different because I was different. I'd stopped being the woman who let herself disappear into someone else's vision of who I should be. I'd become someone who made my own choices, accepted consequences, lived authentically even when it was dangerous. "Thank you," Dante murmured as we moved together, "for taking a chance on a stranger, for not running when things got complicated, for seeing past who everyone thinks I am to who I actually am." "Thank you for kissing me when I asked," I replied, "for keeping me safe, for being honest, even when it would have been easier to lie." "Emma," he said, and there was something in his tone that made me look up at him. "I love you." I felt my breath catch. We'd never said those words before, had been carefully avoiding them, both aware of how intense things had gotten, how fast we'd moved. But hearing him say it now, in this place where we'd started, felt exactly right. "I love you too," I said, "even though you're complicated and dangerous and possibly crazy." "Definitely crazy," he agreed, pulling me closer. "But crazy about you." We stayed at the gala for another hour, but my mind was elsewhere, focused on those 3 words and everything they meant. When we finally left, Dante didn't take me back to the penthouse. Instead, he directed his driver to a different address in the village. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You'll see." The car stopped in front of a brownstone, beautiful and classic, the kind of place I'd dreamed about living in, but never thought I could afford. Dante led me up the steps, producing a key and opening the door. The interior was gorgeous. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, exposed brick walls. It was furnished but not lived in yet, the kind of staging that suggested a property being prepared for showing. "Dante, what is this?" "A possibility," he said. "I know you've been staying with me, but I also know you value your independence, your own space. I thought perhaps we could compromise, a place that's ours, that we choose together, design together. Not my territory or yours, but something we build together." I walked through the space, taking in the large kitchen, the living room with its fireplace, the master bedroom with windows overlooking a small garden. There were 2 additional bedrooms, one that could be an office, one that could be, eventually, something else. "This is too much," I finally said. "I can't accept something like this." "It's not a gift," Dante said. "It's an investment in our future. Emma, I meant what I said. I love you. I want to build a life with you, one that respects both of our needs. You need space that's yours, independence, the ability to come and go as you please. This gives you that, while still keeping you close, keeping you safe." "It's perfect," I admitted. "But Dante, this must cost." "That's not your concern," he interrupted gently. "Let me provide this. Let me show you that being with me means being cared for, protected, supported in building the life you want." I turned to face him, this dangerous, complicated man who'd become my home. "On one condition." "Name it." "I contribute. Maybe not financially, maybe not at first. But this place, if we do this, it's not just you taking care of me. It's us building something together. I paint these walls. I choose this furniture. I make this feel like home. Equal partnership." "Equal partnership," Dante agreed, pulling me into his arms. "In this and everything else." We spent the next hour walking through the brownstone, imagining how it could be, where we'd put my painting corner, where Dante's books would go, how we'd use the garden, making plans, building a future, choosing each other despite all the reasons we probably shouldn't. When we finally left, heading back to the penthouse to collect my things, to start the actual process of moving into our own space, I felt a contentment I'd never experienced. Yes, there were risks. Yes, Dante's world was dangerous. Yes, being with him meant constant vigilance, security measures, complications I'd never imagined. But it also meant being seen, valued, loved without conditions. It meant partnership with someone who respected my strength while offering protection. It meant building something real with someone who'd been honest from the first moment about exactly who and what he was. A year after that first kiss, Dante proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or a romantic getaway, but at home, in the brownstone we'd made ours. I was painting in my corner, working on a piece inspired by the night we met, all dark blues and gold highlights and shadows. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, watched the canvas take shape. "Marry me," he said quietly. I turned in his arms, paintbrush still in hand, probably getting paint on his expensive shirt. "What?" "Marry me, Emma. Make this official. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have. Build this life with me permanently." "Your world isn't exactly conducive to traditional marriage," I pointed out. "And I'm not asking for traditional," Dante replied. "I'm asking for you. For the woman who asked a stranger to kiss her, who didn't run when things got complicated, who sees past my reputation to the man beneath. The woman who paints when she can't sleep and cries over her patience, and challenges me when I'm wrong and loves me anyway." "You're sure?" I asked. "Because once we do this, there's no easy way out. I'll be connected to your world completely, permanently, whatever consequences that brings." "I'm sure," he said. "The question is, are you?" I thought about my life before Dante. The careful choices, the appropriate relationships, the path laid out that would have led to comfortable mediocrity. Then I thought about my life now. Complicated, dangerous, full of risks and rewards in equal measure. Living in a brownstone with a man I loved who loved me back, completely and without reservation. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ring he produced was perfect. Not ostentatious, not overly large. An emerald, my birthstone, surrounded by smaller diamonds. Beautiful and meaningful and exactly right. We married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Sarah was my maid of honor, still wary of Dante but supportive of my happiness. Dante's sister Lucia flew in from Sicily, welcoming me with warmth and only a little concern about her brother's choice of bride. The ceremony itself was traditional, despite everything else being anything but. We exchanged vows in a small church, promising loyalty, honesty, partnership. The reception was held at one of Dante's restaurants, filled with food and wine, and people from both our worlds, mingling with varying degrees of comfort. On our wedding night, Dante took me back to the brownstone, carrying me over the threshold with old-world charm that made me laugh. "You know I can walk, right?" "Tradition," he said seriously. "My mother would be disappointed if I didn't observe the important traditions." We sat in the garden behind our home, sharing wine and watching stars appear in the New York sky, rare and precious in a city of too much light. "Any regrets?" Dante asked. "None," I said, and meant it. "You?" "Only that I didn't see you first that night," he replied. "That I didn't approach you before you had to come find me." "I think it happened exactly the way it was supposed to," I said. "I needed to be the one to take the risk, to be brave enough to ask for what I wanted. If you'd approached me, I probably would have said no. Too scared, too careful. And now? Now I'm married to a man who makes me brave, I said. Who makes me believe that taking risks, being bold, choosing danger over safety sometimes leads to exactly where you're supposed to be. I love you, Mrs. Salvatore. I love you too, I said. My dangerous, complicated, perfect husband. We sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, building plans for the future. Children someday, maybe. Definitely continuing my nursing career, which Dante supported completely. Slowly transitioning more of his businesses toward legitimate operations, reducing the risk, building something sustainable for the next generation. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, threats, moments when I questioned everything. But there would also be love, partnership, the profound satisfaction of building something real with someone who saw me, all of me, and chose me anyway. Sometimes the most important moments in your life happen when you're at your lowest, when you're heartbroken and desperate and bold enough to ask a stranger for help, when you take a risk that doesn't make sense, that everyone warns you against, that could lead to disaster or to exactly where you're supposed to be. That night at the gala, I asked a stranger to kiss me. I had no idea that stranger would become my husband, my partner, my home. I had no idea that taking one desperate risk would lead to a life more complicated and more beautiful than anything I'd imagined. But that's how the best stories begin, isn't it? With a moment of courage, a leap of faith, a choice to be bold even when you're terrified. Kiss me. My ex is staring, I'd said to a stranger, unaware I was talking to the man who would become my future. He'd kissed me, and in doing so, had given me back myself. The woman I was meant to be, brave and honest and unafraid to love dangerously. And I'd do it all again. Every complicated moment, every dangerous choice, every terrifying risk. Because some strangers are meant to become family. Some dangers are worth embracing. And some kisses change everything.